morning. I hope you're all well. Let me adjust my camera a little bit here. As you can see, I have 2 chairs. You only need 1. But I have 2 set up so that I can show you different angles. But we will be using a chair to begin with. We'll get started in a few moments. Welcome to the Sun and Moon Yoga YouTube channel. We're here every morning from 10 to 10:30 live, and we record these sessions so you can go back and see them again, or if you missed one week, you can go some other time. We have lots of different teachers offering different lessons, so hope you'll keep coming back throughout the fall. Good morning. Good morning, Susan. Good morning, John. Good to see you. Thank you for being here this morning. We'll get started in just a few moments. As you can see, I have 2 chairs. You only need one chair per person. We'll start in a chair this morning. And I have a blanket to give my lower back some support once I do sit in it. And we'll see who else is here. We'll get started in just a moment. Good morning, Jill. Good morning, Greg and Frank. Good morning. Good morning. Hope you're all doing well. We've got about another minute before we get started. I'm going to go ahead and take off my socks. Though, for the first part, you really are welcome to keep your socks on if you're wearing socks. We don't need it until we do some work on our feet as we stand up. And it's about that time. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Jennifer Eubank. This is the Sun and Moon Yoga YouTube channel. We're here every morning, every weekday morning from 10 to 10:30, and I'm here Fridays 10 to 10:30. And again, we archive all of these sessions so you can revisit them, or if you miss one, you can go and see it anytime you like. We have lots of things to offer. Today, I thought we would celebrate the skeleton because, after all, it is Halloween and the skeleton might be in your mind these days. And like I said, we're starting in a chair this morning to start things simple. So get a nice sturdy chair. Doesn't have to have arms. In fact, it's preferable if it has no arms. And I have 2 chairs set up so that at some point I'm going to show you my side view. I'm starting with my front view. And I've got a blanket that I have folded nice and neatly. And then I folded it in half to make a nice big chunk, but it's a nice neat chunk. And I put it back here to support my lumbar spine. We talked about the lumbar spine quite a bit last week, and it's a good as place as any to begin our bone talk today, our skeleton talk. Put some support back there, and I'll show you what it looks like from the side. And the reason why I put support back here, you don't have to if you don't want to. The reason why I put it here, number one, it supports my lumbar spine, the lower back. It stabilizes and supports it. And that keeps me at a 90-degree angle, a right angle. If I didn't have this blanket and I sat in this chair and I used the chair for support, I might start to find myself slumping. And that 90-degree angle diminishes. So that's why I'm putting that here because I want to keep a nice 90 angle as we do our first sequence. So see the difference? And by the way, this is a real nice trick if you're driving long distances. They make special pillows for lumbar support, but you can make your own. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my front view. And another reason why we have this support is because it helps you keep your feet square, not square, rooted and grounded to the floor. If you were slumping, your heels might come up a little bit. So you want the feet solely and surely rooted to the floor, and find your skeletal shape. Organize your skeletal shape. 2 lines from your shoulders to your hips, to your knees, to your ankles. And maybe I'm going to actually come a little more straight on, because that was a little bit of an angle there. There, that's better. So 2 parallel lines, shoulders to hips, to knees, to ankles. And the chair helps me organize that and find that skeletal parallel shape and feeling to my skeleton. And feet nice and rooted and grounded allows me to slightly engage my leg muscles so that my leg bones stay in order. So if I start to slack off on the feet, my knees might start to wobble. So I keep those feet good and rooted. And that draws that energy and that organization all the way up. I draw my belly in and lift my sternum, which is the bone between the collarbones. It's in between the ribs here, and it is, if you lift that sternum, you'll feel a lift to your rib cage and a lift to your collarbones, and you might find a sense of width and widening to your collarbones and your shoulders as you lift that sternum. And it's really nice to feel those feet good and grounded as you lift that sternum. And then start to take your focus, your awareness to your spine, from your tailbone all the way up into your neck. And just scan it over, a couple of scans up and down, and maybe close your eyes. And then when you're ready, notice the weight of the sits bones. You have 1 in each bum cheek. Notice the weight of the sits bones. And root and ground those sits bones into the chair. And you might feel the tailbone, and if you don't, pretend like you feel it. It's down there at the tip of the spine, near the sits bones, and you can root onto those 3 bones and form kind of a tripod. And that can stabilize your seat and feel a nice lift from that tripod. The sits bones and the tailbone. Draw the belly in and take your mind up the spine into the sacrum, in between the hips. And then up into the lumbar spine, the lower spine, supported by this blanket. And as you're ready, take your mind further up into the thoracic region, your thoracic spine where your ribs attach. And then further up into your cervical spine, your neck. And see if you might lengthen your cervical spine, your neck, by slightly tilting, tucking your chin in. Not a huge tuck, but just a slight tuck, and feel the spine, the neck, and the back lengthen, and the shoulders relax. A few more breaths, feeling that spine lengthen as much as your body will allow it to lengthen without strain. And every now and then visit those feet that are rooted on the floor and the strong legs that are supporting your spine and your torso. As you're ready, open your eyes. If you close the eyes, and let's let the hands drop to the sides. And maybe shake them out a little bit. And draw your awareness to your arm bones, from your shoulders all the way down to the elbows, the wrists, the hands, down into the fingers. And lengthen the fingers and loosen them. And really let them weigh down. And notice if you're subconsciously, or maybe consciously, holding them up like that. Feel the weight. Let gravity take hold of those arms. And lengthen the arms and still continue to lengthen your spine, rooting into the feet, the sits bones, the tailbone, your little tripod there. Belly is drawn and your sternum is lifted. Your chin is slightly tucked to lengthen that back, that spine. A couple more breaths here. I closed my eyes again. If you did, reopen them. And then as you're ready, keep your skeleton nice and strong, muscles engaged. And then let's bring the arms up to shoulder height. And take a few breaths to make your arms as long as possible. Keep the belly drawn in and lengthen your arms from one hand to the other. Couple more breaths, and soften your wrists, your elbows, your shoulders as you slightly engage the muscles to hold these arms up. And notice that this is tiring just to hold these arms up like this. Can you go a few more breaths with keeping the arms up and nice and long, but soft, with it just enough work. So ease off any strain you might be feeling. And next time you inhale, lengthen just a little bit more. And as you exhale, keep that sternum lifted as you slowly let those arms float back down. And as they float back down, take a couple of breaths and shake them out if you want to. Visit the feet and the legs and your sits bones and your structure. Draw the belly in, lift your sternum, and as you're ready, use an inhale to lift those arms back up. And as you exhale, settle into the length of those arms and to the lightness of those arms. And then, as you're ready, when you inhale, turn the hands so they face the ceiling, and when you exhale, turn the hands so they face the floor. So we inhale, rotate one way, exhale, rotate the other. And keep going, inhaling and exhaling, and make sure the feet are nice and grounded and rooted. Your legs are solid, but your knees are soft. Your belly is drawn in, and your sternum is lifted. Your skeleton is still organized, but your shoulders are soft, allowing you to rotate back and forth like this. So yes, we're turning our hands back and forth, but really the motion is starting in the shoulder joint. We're rotating one way and then the other. And if you keep the legs strong and the belly drawn and the chest lifted, you're asking your entire body to get in on the game here. So your whole body is participating in simply rotating your shoulders back and forth. And if you get tired, come back down. But if you keep that whole body working, you might be able to do this for half an hour. Yogi Bhajan says, keep up and you will be kept up. And we'll go just a few more breaths. Inhaling as we rotate one way, exhaling the other. Keep that skeleton nice and strong. And next time you exhale the hands down, let's exhale the arms all the way down and keep the arms, or excuse me, the feet and the legs pretty prominent and the belly drawn in and the chest lifted as those arms float down. And once again, shake them out. Notice. Maybe close the eyes. Perhaps feel some tingling throughout your entire arm. Both of them. And then as you're ready, go ahead and a little bit more spine work. Let's do some crescents, crescent moons. And put your hands on the chair. Actually, let's do this. Draw the belly in, lift your sternum, and then as you're ready, float the arms up overhead, interlace your fingers, and then if you can, turn the hands and reach up for a few breaths. And that'll help us lengthen the spine, lengthen the arms, but feel the feet and the legs and the sits bones and your tailbone nice and solid on those foundation points so that your shoulders are relaxed. And then as you're ready, bring your hand down, your right hand down, and then go ahead and straighten up your left hand. And the right hand comes down and makes contact with the chair. And feel the feet and the chair, and draw your belly in and use an inhale to lift up a little bit more, but keep the shoulder relaxed. And as you exhale, press into the sits bones and the grip of the chair and start to feel your spine curve. So press into those foundation points, and that starts the curve of the spine. And the reaching helps you lengthen that curve and reach. And keep going. And if you start to notice, okay, that's as far as I'm going to go, then just stop. But if you feel good, keep going. But make sure the feet are nice and rooted evenly, and the legs and the sits bone as well are also rooted. So as I'm reaching to the right, my left sit bone is not coming up and my left foot is not coming up. I'm staying grounded, and that helps that skeletal spine change its shape. And then as I'm ready, I press into those points, the feet, the sits bones, the hand on the chair, and I float that arm back up. My lifted arm, that shoulder, and that elbow are just as loose as butter, melting butter, as I bring that arm back down. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So seat is nice and grounded, draw the belly in, lift your sternum, use an inhale to lift, and interlace those fingers and find that length in your spine and that rootedness in your sits bones and your feet and your bum on the chair there. Bring that hand down, find those foundation points, and root in it to start the curve. And the joints are soft as we do this. And our foundation points are prominent, the feet, the hand on the chair, especially the opposite sit bone from which we are reaching. That stays good and rooted. That protects that spine. And as you're ready, keep those foundation points nice and grounded as you come back. And once again, we can keep the belly drawn and the sternum lifted as we float the arm back down. And then from here, just take a couple of breaths. Notice your skeletal shape. Notice, is it still organized in the way we started? And then from here, let's go ahead and get up. And I'm going to move this one chair out of the way. And I'm going to move my other chair. I'm going to turn it around, and we'll use the chair to do some chair dogs. Downward facing dogs. But instead of putting our hands on the floor, we'll put our hands on the chair. And I believe we've done this before in these sessions. And I'm actually going to turn my chair this way. So, hands on the chair, and feet are hip-width distance apart, and step back far away enough from the chair that allows you to hinge at the hips and come into a 90-degree angle. So we'll start at a 90-degree angle. And notice if your feet are too far away, then it's going to be hard for you to be at a 90-degree angle, maybe. So make sure that you give yourself enough space and length from the chair, distance from the chair, so that you can lengthen the arms and lengthen the spine as well. So if you're like this, you want to find that length. Lengthen them bones, lengthen those arm bones, lengthen your spine bone, and lengthen your leg bones. And feel free to bend and straighten the knees. You can do that a few times. And as you bend and straighten, that can help you better organize your bones and get a little bit more in touch with what's going on with them this morning. And maybe you want to go wide with your feet. So if your feet are really close together, that can destabilize your base. If they're hip-width distance apart, that's usually a pretty comfortable distance for most people, but feel free to go a little wider, because as you go wide, you can get more length. I have found that's been my experience. And anytime you want to come up, feel free to lift up and try to walk towards the chair before you come off of it. And we'll do a couple more minutes of these chair dogs. And I really like teaching these chair dogs because it gives you a chance to lengthen those legs by rooting and grounding your feet. And if you do a regular downward facing dog, and I'll demonstrate a regular dog real quick, and I'll show you what I mean. And you probably know what I mean because you've probably experienced this. Most people at one time or another have a hard time getting those heels down to the floor. And that can limit your rooting and grounding power, which can limit how long you can lengthen those legs. And one of the goals of a dog is to lengthen your legs. Lengthen the bones as well as the muscles. So if your feet are good and rooted and you're drawing that energy up from the back of the legs, you're more likely to stretch out those hamstrings. So I'll do one more chair dog. You could also do these on the wall, or you could use a piece of furniture. As long as you can find that your hands are shoulder height or slightly above the shoulders. So if you're putting your hands on a surface where your hands are lower, like this, that can destabilize things. So make sure that you're putting your hands on a surface where your hands are shoulder height, if not a little bit higher. And if you get dizzy, vertigo, glaucoma, or you have high blood pressure, I have glaucoma, so I have to keep my head in order. Sometimes if I bring down my head like this in a down dog, it will affect my glaucoma. So this version is a nice version to keep your head organized. But make sure you keep your face parallel to the floor to keep your spine nice and long, because I keep catching myself looking up and that puts a crick in my neck, and that shortens my spine. Remember that tucking your chin slightly in? Maybe slightly tuck your chin in as you're in this. And then when you're ready, maybe you're already out of it, we'll take a couple more breaths. Find our way out of it safely but surely. And when you come out of your chair dog, take a couple of breaths to walk around and regroup. And then I'm going to get rid of this chair altogether. And then what we'll do is we'll sit on the floor. Actually, I'm going to bring this chair back into it because I remembered at some point I do want to use the chair again. So keep a chair handy. We'll see if we have time. We might not have time. Let's do a staff pose. So when you come down onto the floor, come into, well, do whatever you want, but I like to come down, I incrementalize. So I come into a table, shake it up, baby. Maybe do a little bit of rocking horsing and puppies and childs. Just kind of stretch things out. And then as you're ready, we'll come into a staff pose. Long legs. And point the toes towards the ceiling to start the engaging of the legs. The muscles engage as you point the toes up. That's flexing the feet. And keep the belly drawn in and the sternum lifted. And feel the sits bones and the tailbone if you can. Find that tripod like we did. So we're doing the same thing we did in the chair, only now we're on the floor and our legs are straight out. So organize your skeletal self, lengthen the leg bones, lengthen your spine, widen your hips. I'll turn around. Again, it's really important to think about the wide lines. So my feet are wide. If they're really close, it might affect things. So, but I don't want to go real wide because that can also affect things. That takes me out of those two parallel lines. I like to find those, well, you know, the two yellow lines on a highway, on a road. Find those parallel lines from shoulders to hips to knees to ankles. Just like you do in a mountain pose, only here we've got that right angle. And try to keep that right angle established. And if keeping that right angle established is difficult, ask your legs. Really press into the floor with the legs. Press into the floor with the heels. Press into the floor with the sits bones. Engage the thigh muscles. Use those muscles. Use your butt muscles. Draw the belly in. Keep your sternum lifted and your shoulders relaxed. Keep up, and you will be kept up. If you find strain, what do you want to do to take that strain out? Do you want to shore up more? Do you want to take a little rest? Do you need some sort of support? Maybe sitting on a blanket would be easier for you. Or maybe turning this into a cobbler would be easy for you. And you can turn it into a cobbler. Otherwise, stay in your staff. We'll stay here for just a few more breaths. But feel free to join us in this. Join me and my cat. Root your sits bones, your tailbone. Draw the belly in. Feel that sternum lifting. And as you lift your sternum, can you relax your shoulders and relax your knees? Ground and lift. Root and float up and smile. And our last pose, I'd like to end in crocodile. So as you're ready, we won't have time for the chair. So I'm going to get up and move the chair. You come to your belly. And as you lie on your belly, lengthen your legs, lengthen your spine, and bend your elbows, stack one hand on top of the other, and put your forehead on top of the hands. And then bring your feet as wide as the corners of your mat, or if you're not using a mat, this is wider than your hips, basically. And maybe shake your hips from side to side and see if you can make your legs as long as possible. By rest on the floor and keep the head on the hands. And I'm going to move this chair because that one might be in the way. And I'm also going to take this obnoxious toy away from my cat, my Halloween cat. I love crocodile pose because it allows me to hunker down and quiet down and release tension and let it melt into the floor. And at the same time, it helps me lengthen my spine from the cervical spine, which is my neck, all the way down into my tailbone. And lengthening my legs can help that lengthening in the spine for me. And as I lengthen my legs, or as I widen my feet, I can widen my hips and loosen up my hips, and that can give me more of a chance to lengthen my legs, which then can help me lengthen my spine. So it's like this beautiful cycle. Constantly, it's like a loop, looping round and round. And maybe you'd like to bring your arms out and bring your forehead down and arms out to the sides. Shoulder height, palms down. A little awkward if you're wearing glasses. And see if you can turn your crocodile into kind of like Michelangelo's Da Vinci's drawing. Can you make the long legs longer? Can you make your wide arms longer? Can you make your spine longer? All without tension to the joints. And feel the weight of your body. And does the weight of your body give you a chance to lengthen and release? And then when you're ready, let's make our way back up. Take your time. So you may want to return to crocodile and bring those feet back in bit by bit. Keep the belly drawn in as you press into the floor and rise back up. And I will come up in hero's pose, as I feel like I've just stretched out, found all that width and that length at this pose, which is usually not very accessible for me, has become pretty easy. So I'll show you what hero's pose looks like. Well, this is a modified hero's pose. I'm sitting on my heels and I'm rooting into my sits bones onto my heels and finding that length in my spine by rooting my calves, my shins, and rooting into my calves and rooting my sits bones onto my heels, drawing the belly in, lifting my sternum and relaxing those shoulders. Finding length and width with attention to detail, visiting all of these areas, using the breath to help integrate the two halves of the skeleton. And we'll finish with a tiny, tiny tuck to the chin to lengthen your cervical spine just a little bit more. And a few more breaths going up and down with your mind through the spine, from the tailbone up through the sacrum, the lumbar spine, the thoracic spine, up into the cervical spine, your neck. And does your skull feel nice and light, or does it feel really heavy? What is your experience? How does your skull feel? We'll finish with the skull. And we'll bring our hands to our hearts. Actually, we'll finish with the heart. Namaste. Thank you so much for being here today. Again, Sun and Moon Yoga YouTube channel. We're here every weekday morning from 10 to 10:30. I'm Jennifer Eubank, here from on Fridays. And if you'd like to check out my live class, I teach on Thursdays from 4 to 5:15. And also, I'll be teaching the teens on Tuesdays at 4. From 4 to 5. A lot of days and times to remember. So if you have teenagers or you know people with teenagers, please send them my way. We have a really nice time. So thank you so much. Happy Halloween. Don't eat too much candy. I don't know if you celebrate Halloween. I don't, but I know it's in the air. So, and celebrate your good, healthy bones. Take good of your bones. Good care of your bones. Thank you so much, everybody. Jennifer Eubank. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Sun and Moon. Sun and Moon joined us too and are saying thank you. Thank you, Greg. Oh, thank you, Betsy. Thank you, Frank. Dim bones, dim bones. I hope your bones feel good. Ah, yes, teens. We'll have a great time, a good time. Thank you, everyone. Be safe out there. Take care.